last video of the day is from The Escapist, which I believe we've had a pretty bad video or bad something from The Escapist in the past, if I'm not mistaken, around Star Citizen. So this is titled 3 Things Somewhere Q4 2027 Extra Punctuation. If I remember, these are like no journalism Andes.
Like most people who spend an inordinate amount of time on YouTube, I love drama. I mean, why else would I review Hogwarts Legacy? I've been hanging around various cesspits online since before the turn of the millennium, and as such, there's something about classic internet drama videos that make me very nostalgic, and I've been watching a lot of amateur documentaries on doomed overambitious game projects lately. It's not just funny to watch overinflated egos crushed underfoot by reality, it's also jolly instructive for someone with a foot in game development. But I'm slightly concerned and bewildered by how frequently the following scenario has come up over the years. An amateur developer pledges to make a game in which the player can do anything. They can go...
I have a feeling this guy's not going to be very wrong in this one, though.
Anywhere in a huge complex open world, and maybe they could be a warrior, or maybe they could be a blacksmith, or own a restaurant, or become a king or a general, and order other players around. And you'll play in a huge, persistent, always online open world, and there'll be player-run economy, government, and law enforcement. And there'll be crafting, and vehicles, and farming, and you basically won't need any other games, because it'll have every game in it. And this will all be made by our team of 2 guys, one of whom was in earshot of Google headquarters once. We might not have the resources of a AAA studio, but we'll make up for it with pure gosh darn passion, and then, for some reason, people get hyped, despite the fact that in almost every documented case, the result is a fiasco. I really feel like this has happened enough times that we should all be immune to this particular hype monster, but apparently not. It's come up...
It's impossible to be immune to the hype monster because we badly want a game that's good, and we have never gotten it.
Several times in the age of Kickstarter, now that getting a project greenlit and funded relies largely on one's ability to waggle shiny objects for the amusement of cretins, rather than to convince actually smart, experienced people that you know what the fuck you're doing. Google titles like Chronicles of Illyria, or Dreamworld, if you want specifics. That second one seems to have been written off as a scam, but honestly, I don't believe these things start out that way.
Chronicles of Illyria has been written off as a scam, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Because there are countless better ways to scam people that don't involve putting yourself available for 24/7 harassment from your backers if you fail to complete the impossible task you have set for yourself. I believe they start when an ambitious idiot with no cocking idea how game development works makes the usual mental leap that, since games are fundamentally simulations, then the hypothetical zenith of video games would be one that simulates as much of reality as possible. And all they need is funding and logistics now they've done the hard part and come up with the idea. But it also predates Kickstarter. Back in olden times, every now and again, someone would show up on a gaming forum saying, hey, I've licensed the Talk engine, and I've decided I'm going to make an MMO FPS RPG that's going to beat Halo and World of Warcraft somehow. Who wants in on this project? I need volunteer coders, artists, musicians, designers, and writers. I'm the idea guy. And they'd inevitably be laughed out of the room.
He's on point so far.
After getting agitated over all the haters trying to kill
the idea guy. Now, the difference between Chris Roberts and I think the idea guy is he's more than just the idea guy. He's obviously had success and has done things before, but at the same time, he feels like he's just the idea guy these days.
Their big dream with their reasonable questions and constructive criticism. But don't you start looking too smug, professional developers. You've done your fair share of this shit. We used to call it pulling a Peter Molyneux, who is the prime example of someone who needs limitations to function. Around the turn of the millennium, when the 3D open world was first becoming a thing, we saw the do-anything game promise coming up a lot from old-hand developers who were giddy at the prospect of the new technology, but hadn't quite gotten to grips with the complications. So there was Molyneux promising the Earth for Fable, the disappointment of Will Wright's Spore. Oh, and lest we forget...
Oh, Spore. What a disappointment Spore was.
2 words, Star Citizen, helmed by Chris Roberts of Wing Commander fame. The go-anywhere, do-anything space game is one of the main subgenres of this kind of thing. On that subject, let's acknowledge a couple of rare success stories. No Man's Sky eventually sorted its shit out, as is well documented, but I'd argue it still doesn't include the broadness of scope promised in its initial hype. And then
I would agree with that.
There's Elite Dangerous, but I wouldn't call that a go-anywhere, do-anything game. It's just a go-anywhere game. What do? You explore explore, trade, and fight pirates. That's not do anything, that's do 3 things. And the same's true of No Man's Sky. You can explore, fight, craft yourself a base, or follow the plot. And it works because it has those clearly defined gameplay loops for the player to flip between, not because you can do anything. And don't you non-developers look smug either, because you're the ones who are buying into this hype time and time again. The audience supplying money and attention is the thing that turns an idiot harmlessly airing their daydreams into a prolonged online shitfest.
Like, here's the deal. If you really think Star Citizen is going to be a go anywhere, do anything, literally be able to do anything game, you're crazy. There's limitations. There's always going to be limitations, and they're not very good at sharing what the limitations are.
Who are the people I need to reach when I state the thesis of this video, which is as follows. Wanting a game where you can do anything, or pledging to make such, requires a fundamental misunderstanding of video games as a concept. Let's put aside the fact that it would be incredibly hard to make. Let's also put aside that it's impossible for a game to let us literally do anything.
What I don't like is he's showing like mega old footage to make it look worse than it actually is, but okay.
That much should be obvious. I mean, what if I want to move to Israel and set up a bus network for penguins? Oh, I can't do that? Well, so much for do anything. I guess you could probably do it in AI Dungeon. But the point is, even if you could somehow create this game where it's possible to do anything, and doubly unlikely ensure its consistent stability, it still wouldn't be much fun. It's still not something you should want. Unless you're the most hardcore of role players, and more to the point, have no life, most people don't actually want a secondary electronic reality. There's long been this science fiction notion of cyberspace, where the future internet will somehow become this global communal VR experience, and the idea is still going strong. There was that Facebook Meta video showing how maybe in the future you could order groceries by picking up virtual items in a virtual supermarket. Well, let's get one thing straight. That's never going to fucking happen, because the march of technology is driven by increasing efficiency, and putting on your VR helmet to walk down the virtual street and interact with the virtual newsboy is infinitely less efficient than just opening your web browser on your phone and going to BBC News. Most people have shit to do. Same principle applies to the do anything game. Most people play games for specific reasons. If they want an FPS, they'll seek out an FPS, rather than a game that's also 500 other games. For the same.
Yeah, but that's the thing. If you actually play Star Citizen and don't just live on the internet to shit talk it, is if you are interested in FPS in Star Citizen, you FPS in Star Citizen. If you're interested in ship combat in Star Citizen, you ship combat in Star Citizen. If you're interested in trading, that's what you do. I will agree. The putting yourself out there and saying this game will do anything and everything, you're just setting yourself up for disaster, and that's what Star Citizen has been. But yeah.
Same reason they wouldn't buy an entire microwave to read the current time off the digital clock. Do anything games always have an attractive pitch. You could become the lord of your own empire. A world of discovery awaits. But these are things that are very hard to appreciate on the moment-to-moment level. It's hard to take solace in a potential world of discovery over the horizon when right here and right now you're just some clot in a meadow with a default whacking stick and a pair of second-hand underpants. In other words, it's the core gameplay loop that matters most, not abstract ideas of untapped potential. If you throw most players into...
What is the core gameplay loop of Star Citizen? Name it now. You can't. It doesn't exist. Nobody knows what it is.
An open world and say, do whatever you like, they're more likely to feel paralyzed.
It's just the truth. And you can hate to hear it, but there is no gameplay loop. It doesn't exist. Yeah, I guess the pledge store is the only thing. So that is the core issue with Star Citizen, is there is no clear core gameplay loop. That's the problem. Nobody knows what it is. They've never shared what it is. Not a single developer knows what it is. I don't even think Chris Roberts knows what it is. They're just making shit up as they go. And that's the part that leaves the icky taste in so many people's mouth. I can log into Star Citizen and find some fun occasionally. It looks great. It's cool. It would be sick if they made some core gameplay in it. It's like make money and that's it. But like, what do you do with the money? So like half of the core gameplay loop is there, but the other half doesn't exist. Because like, what do you spend your money on? Right? So the core gameplay loop just isn't there, and it needs to be there.
by choice. We get enough uncertainty in daily life. We're trying to have fun here. It all feels so irrational that these game pitches keep getting people excited, when the actual indie hits that cause a stir thanks to their inherent high quality and instant appeal are usually games like Celeste, Neon White, Hi-Fi Rush, games that focus on doing one thing incredibly well. But then, designing such games requires skill, and the real paradox of the overambitious do-anything game is that it's a very lazy idea. When you say, do whatever you like to the player, you're asking them to supply all.
It's a lazy idea, but if you would argue that what has already been made in Star Citizen has been made by skillless people, is just inherently wrong. Like, that's the thing, is I can't hate the game developers here. It's all the marketing of it that's just so crap, but the people who are actually working on the game are talented.
The mental labor of creating a fun experience. You might as well give them a sheet of blank paper and a pen and say, now you can write the novel you want to read. All I'm asking is for people to stop falling for this promise. But as I say, we never seem to learn. I only just found out that Leslie Benzies and a couple of other former Rockstar bods are working on an upcoming game along these lines, simply called Everywhere, because that's where you can go, I suppose. And what exactly the player can expect to do once they get there has been left rather tellingly vague. Christ, that title so neatly encapsulates my gripes. Reminds me of that film, Everything Everywhere All at Once. Except in this case more like Three Things Somewhere, Q4 2027 at the earliest.
I don't have a lot of gripes with the things that he said. I really don't. And that's the harsh reality of really wanting Star Citizen to be successful. Because it probably won't be. But we can all hope. You know, there's something like, I just remember him being a joke within the community like years ago. But that's probably when everyone was so high on the copium of like 3.0 is going to be great. Hey, you just wait. In 3.2, we're going to get farming kind of feeling like the 2016 times. I just remember people talking about him. There was nearly nothing I had an argument with there. Just a couple minor things. And that's really it, right? It's tough. You know, it's not a good situation that Star Citizen's in from the standpoint of what's the core gameplay loop? What are we playing? What are you buying into? What's this supposed to be? It's really easy to keep selling something that is just imaginary, right? And yeah, that was interesting. So here's a link to that one. I hope you guys enjoy it. It depressed me, though.